really is quite a different approach than the historical approach. When the barriers are identified, then of course our next step is to think about how can we remove those barriers. There are a couple of ways to remove barriers. One is through design, which we'll be talking quite a bit about, and the other is accommodation, which I think most people are very familiar with. A student comes into the DS office and they're not able to access a course or a building or a website, and our office puts accommodations in place so that they can access it just like every other student. But to me, that's a very reactive approach. You know, we're waiting for the problem to show up on our doorstep, and then we come up with a solution that fixes it for that student. The design approach is a much more proactive and sustainable approach. So what that focus is thinking about environments that students are going to interact within and designing them from the ground up to be accessible so that accommodations are not even necessary. And that really is the focus of our department. And that's all about universal design. Our ultimate goal in our department is for students not to experience barriers related to their disability, for them to just access everything just like every other student does just by showing up. And to have this kind of a feel in this image of it being open and welcoming and no barriers. Let me walk you through a couple of examples that kind of get you from the old thinking of accommodations to the new thinking of design, universal design. This is a ramp that was built after the fact for an older building. I'm not sure where this was taken. But as you can see, it does this zigzag to get access to the building. So somebody would have to enter from the bottom and go up and back and up and back and up to get to the building. This is obviously an afterthought. Somebody put up a building and then later thought, oops, people in wheelchairs need some way in this building. So they built this, and it's perfectly functional. It's not attractive. It's not elegant. I wouldn't want it attached to my house. But it does the job. If you look as things evolve, let's look at this building. This is the front of a building on our campus, Dickinson Hall, which is the building I'm in right now. You're probably into. When you approach the front of the building, there are two steps to enter the building. So if you're in a wheelchair or pushing a walker, or you're the UPS guy with a whole bunch of packages on a dolly, you're thinking, no, this isn't going to work for me at all. Well, as you can see over here on the side, there is an accessible entrance. It's separated from the other entrances, but it's still pretty easy to get to. So, and it was designed that way. The building was designed this way. So you don't have the ugly ramp attached to the building, but it's still not exactly right, I would say. I have a friend of mine who uses a wheelchair, and he says what this design does for him is it creates a social barrier. Because if they're approaching that building from the north, and they get to that building, if he's with a group of friends, everybody enters through that way, and he has to peel off from the group and go around to the accessible door and hopefully hook back up with them. So he calls that a social barrier, and I think that's a really visceral thing that he experiences, that the designers of this building probably didn't give any thought to at all, because they're likely not wheelchair users. So yes, it gives access, but not quite there. Consider this building. I'm not sure where this is in another state. As you can see, the front of the building is a bank of glass doors. Over here you've got an accessible door. And the approach as you go up to the building is a very gentle incline from street level, from sidewalk level. So with this approach, everybody can access this going in the same way. There's no ugly ramp. There's no there's no kind of a separate location that people in wheelchairs have to go through. So to me, this design really does it. It does the universal design. Everybody can access it the same way. It's ready for anybody. If you're a wheelchair user, or if you're a mom pushing your child in a stroller, it works for everybody. Let's translate that. Oh, I'm sorry. And so this is which one is good design. You know which one I'm going to say. Let's translate that to the web environment.